most of the people that work with me have been with me for at least 13, 14 years. That's a long time for an entertainer to have just, you know, a certain group of people.
I think self-confidence kind of gets sort of dragged through the mud, if I should say so. That's why I think it's very important that you start out with a foundation, an anchor.
Before Whitney Houston passed away, she dropped a truth the industry prayed would stay buried forever. She said some of the biggest R&B queens alive had dealt with more secret lovers than anyone out here ever imagined. And those secrets were guarded like locked safes in a federal vault. These weren't just casual flings. These were hidden nights with pastors, politicians, married music bosses, neighborhood hustlers, dancers, ball players, security dudes, and men from every lane of Black America who thought nobody would ever know. And Whitney wasn't guessing. She had seen it all up close. She knew who got involved with who on tour, who exchanged intimacy for career protection, who fell into chaos behind the wrong partner, and who shattered whole careers behind hotel doors that never got filmed. These stories lived in low-voiced conversations for years, backstage, late nights, over drinks, or during breakdowns fans never witnessed. Tonight, the vault Whitney left behind gets cracked open. No fairy tales, no fluffy gossip, just the raw, messy truth about 15 R&B legends who loved hard, lived wild, and paid the price for choices the world never knew. 1. Aretha Franklin, the Pastors of Detroit. To understand the side of Aretha Franklin that stayed hidden, picture Detroit in the mid-1970s, a city bouncing between church respectability and street-level temptation. Gospel roots on one corner, soul music chaos on the next, and right in the center stood Aretha, the Queen of Soul, daughter of a powerful preacher, raised on scripture, but wrestling with inner storms that no Sunday song could soothe. People assumed Aretha's private life played out in random motels or backstage shadows. But that wasn't the truth at all. Her biggest secret stayed behind the heavy curtains of her home on LaSalle Boulevard, where neighbors whispered about cars with clergy plates pulling up after midnight. Not assistants, not junior ministers, but full pastors, respected and married, slipping into her house while the rest of the city slept. 3 names floated the most. Reverend James Holbrook, a married father, Reverend Milton Gray with his famous fiery sermons, and Reverend Darrell Henson, young, confident, and bold enough to take real risks. They didn't show up for prayer sessions or spiritual advice. They came because Aretha had a heavy presence, lonely, powerful, magnetic, and because being near the Queen of Soul offered a kind of escape their everyday lives never could. What stunned people wasn't only that they were pastors. It was that they came straight to her home like they didn't care who knew. No secret motel, no disguise, no dodging from God or their families. Whitney knew about this through her mother, Sissy Houston, who sang in gospel circles where people talked quietly and carefully. In dressing rooms after service, during robe changes, whispers floated, and Sissy learned enough to realize these stories weren't made up. And Whitney grew up listening to adults speak honestly in ways no documentary ever captured. The world heard Aretha's voice on holy mornings. Whitney heard stories about Aretha's private nights. And that contrast, a queen who lifted souls while battling her own, became one of the most shielded truths in black music. 2. Diana Ross, the politicians and the Hollywood power broker. People like to say Diana Ross rose to the top strictly on talent, but industry old-timers whispered another version that never made it onto paper. Between 1972 and 1979, Diana wasn't just a star. She was a force of ambition and glamour, and powerful men gravitated toward her like she was her own orbit. Fans imagined her linked with dancers or producers, but the real story reached higher. 2 married California politicians, both rising in influence, were rumored to meet with Diana after fundraisers and major Hollywood events. One of them supposedly met her inside a private suite at the Beverly Hills Hotel, the same suite she was seen entering after the 1977 Emmy Awards after-party. Then there was the media tycoon, a man who practically controlled what America watched, read, and celebrated. For Diana, whose career relied on national attention, his interest wasn't just flattering, it was strategic. People whispered that he arranged exclusive interviews, special TV appearances, even major magazine covers, all linked to nights spent in locked rooms away from public eyes. This wasn't romance, this was influence, packaged as intimacy. Whitney learned about all this during Motown 25 rehearsals when an older director, irritated and half-drunk, told a room full of performers, "Diana never needed Motown. She had senators, she had Hollywood, she had the whole West Coast in her pocket." The room froze because everyone knew he wasn't talking wild. He was telling the kind of truth nobody in the industry dared to put on record. Diana wasn't just connected to powerful men. She was connected to men who could shift entertainment with a single phone call. 3. Chaka Khan, the songwriters she paid with desire. Chaka Khan never acted like she was perfect. She was pure fire wrapped in silk, a voice that shook studios and a personality that moved even louder. But behind the wild image lived a complicated truth. At times, Chaka traded intimacy for creative control in an industry that rarely respected black women who demanded authority. Between 1977 and 1982, Rufus needed hits, real hits, to stay alive on the charts. Inside Chicago and LA studios, writers whispered that Chaka gave everything she had to get the songs she deserved. And sometimes, everything didn't mean money. People mentioned Don Merrick, the sax player known for smoky Chicago-style solos, and Louis Price, the smooth-voiced singer with charm that could stop a room. They were talented and they knew exactly what Chaka wanted. Better hooks, stronger bridges, complete rewrites so her power could shine. What they wanted in return wasn't publishing credit. It was time alone with her. A third songwriter, whose name stayed buried on purpose, was rumored to have spent 2 nights with Chaka during a locked-in LA studio session in 1979, emerging with a fully rebuilt chorus that later became a minor hit. It wasn't manipulation, it was survival. Chaka fought for her sound in a world that tried to push women aside, so she used the only leverage certain men couldn't ignore. Whitney heard these stories from musicians on tour. Backup players always talk louder than anyone else. In hotel bars or cramped buses, they described Chaka walking into writing rooms with silk robes and whiskey, telling the men exactly what changes she wanted. It shocked them, but to Chaka, it was business. And Whitney learned early that sometimes the battlefield for creative control wasn't the studio, it was the personal space behind its doors. 4. Patti LaBelle, the men who fed her and styled her. Patti LaBelle's secrets weren't about power or strategy. They were about loneliness. Endless touring, cold hotel rooms, and applause that vanished too quickly left her with a quiet ache for real connection. And the men she got closest to weren't stars or moguls. They were the guys behind the scenes who saw the human side of her. From 1986 to 1988, Patti traveled with a private tour chef named Jerome Fields, a gentleman from New Orleans who made dishes that reminded her of home. Crew members noticed he brought late-night meals to Patti's suite and stayed inside longer than a simple dinner delivery called for. Then came Omar Lewis, her stylist, lively on the outside, soft-hearted behind closed doors. During her 1989 European tour, hotel staff whispered about men's clothes found in Patti's room that didn't belong to her husband or her bandmates. Patti wasn't chasing fame in her personal life. She was chasing warmth, and she didn't care whether the men were powerful or not. Whitney remembered one late night backstage at Soul Train in 1990 when Patti, laughing from exhaustion, told her, "Baby, when you're out here all year long, sometimes the ones who love you best are the ones making your food and fixing your clothes." Whitney never forgot that. It showed that even legends crave human comfort, not just spotlight love. 5. Mary J. Blige, the Dangerous Men of New York. People wondered why Mary J. Blige's music hit so deep. and the whispers in mid-1990s, New York suggested it was because some of the men she cared about carried real danger behind them. Her voice healed millions, but her private choices sometimes pulled her close to men tied to heavy street energy, men whose worlds didn't match her fame but matched the pain she sang about. Her heartbreak wasn't poetic. It was alive. It had a heartbeat, a street code, and a shadow that followed her everywhere. Between 1995 and 1997, insiders whispered that Mary J. Blige wasn't just singing about pain. She was stepping into circles filled with men whose lives ran far beyond the law. These were men who moved in the dark, who controlled corners, who carried weapons without paperwork, and who earned respect through fear instead of charm. And the name that set the industry buzzing was Tone Slick, a man whose temper could flip the whole room. On July 18, 1996, at Queensbridge Houses, a rooftop mixtape party spiraled into chaos. Witnesses claim Mary pulled up quietly in a black Lexus at 11:52 p.m., walking beside Tone with her hood up, even though the air was thick with heat. Minutes later, a simple argument exploded when Tone swung on another man, knocking him down a stairwell as people dove out of the way. Neighbors swore Mary screamed at him to stop, just as sirens echoed from Vernon Boulevard. The NYPD flooded the building, shutting down the party, but they couldn't shut down the rumors. Because now, Mary was linked to one of Brooklyn's most unpredictable street figures, and that connection spread through the industry fast. Sony Music's security team flagged it by morning. And the whispers got louder when, during a charity event in late 1997, Nos leaned into Whitney and said quietly, "Mary's running with men who ain't built for love, they're built for survival." Those words hit Whitney deep. She understood what it meant to search for safety in places where danger was the main language. Mary wasn't caught up with many men. She was dealing with men who carried weapons and moved with the type of energy that didn't leave heartbreak. It left chaos. And in the New York streets of the 90s, chaos didn't apologize. 6. Toni Braxton, The Men, Outside the Spotlight. People assumed Toni Braxton only went for glamorous partners, singers, producers, industry royalty. But the whispers floating around Beverly Hills studios in the late 90s painted a wilder picture. Toni wasn't drawn to Hollywood power. She was drawn to men who lived outside that bubble, men whose worlds had nothing to do with Grammy stages or spotlight nights. Her first curveball romance kicked off in February 1996 when she visited Dr. Kevin Lawrence, a plastic surgeon on Wilshire Boulevard, for what her label said was a routine refinement check. The appointment lasted half an hour, but the affair lasted nearly 8 months. Nurses later whispered that Toni showed up again on February 17th at 11:40 p.m., slipping through the back entrance wearing a wide-brim hat. A week later, Palm Springs hotel workers claimed Toni and Lawrence were dining poolside under a fake reservation name, Ms. Carter. But Toni didn't stop at surgeons. In May 1997, at Eddie Murphy's celebrity boxing charity event, Toni met Marcus Steele, a semi-pro wrestler with a jaw shaped by more fights than fitness routines. Within weeks, Marcus was spotted climbing onto Toni's tour bus during the Secrets tour, hidden behind wardrobe crates as the bus rolled out of Phoenix at 12:22 a.m. Crew members whispered he stayed the whole night and slipped out at a dusty rest stop outside Tucson before anyone else woke up. In San Antonio, a security guard later admitted he let Marcus into the venue through a back ramp just minutes after Toni finished singing "Unbreak My Heart," her dress still shimmering under stage lights. Whitney heard about all this from Babyface and L.A. Reid in a late-night listening session in 1998. They weren't trading gossip, they were worried. Toni wasn't chasing thrills. She was escaping the tight grip of the industry. She stepped into the arms of men who couldn't use her fame, because they didn't belong to that world at all. But that escape came with a price: missed flights, missed rehearsals, and a heart torn between two completely different universes. Toni didn't deal with a lot of men. She dealt with men who lived far from her world, and that's what shocked Whitney most. 7. Janet Jackson, the years of experiments. Imagine a superstar at the height of her power asking herself one question: what if talent isn't enough? What if she needs to reinvent not just her music, but her whole identity? That's where Janet Jackson found herself between 1990 and 1992, a secret era insiders later described with disbelief. Janet didn't date for romance during that time. She dated for research, emotional research, creative research, personal research. She turned her private life into an artistic lab, and the men she chose were unexpected. First came Stephen Harville, a photographer she met during a Rolling Stone shoot on January 14, 1990. Crew members said Janet dismissed her team early that night and invited Stephen to her Malibu home just to review proofs. A security guard later said he saw Stephen leave at 3:07 a.m., barefoot, boots in hand. Months later, at a Joffrey Ballet performance in Chicago, she locked eyes with Daniel Armit, a principal dancer whose moves held her attention. By February 1991, Daniel was flown to LA and placed in Janet's Echo Park guest house so she could study movement up close. Neighbors swore they saw Janet walk barefoot between the main house and the guest house each evening, holding a glass of red wine, lost in her own world. But the shocker happened in July 1992 after a documentary screening at the Directors Guild Theater. Janet left in a black limo with a young music video director whose name insiders still bury. A driver, fired weeks later, claimed they didn't emerge for 4 hours and returned looking like they'd gone through an emotional hurricane. Every man involved later admitted privately that Janet made them sign lifetime NDAs. Whitney got this info from a stylist who worked with both of them. He said, Janet wasn't being reckless. She was studying desire. Janet didn't deal with many men. She dealt with men who unlocked new inspiration, new emotions, new textures, and that made her story one of the most strategic and misunderstood of them all. 8. Brandy, the men who should have known better, rewritten safely. Nothing twists a rising star's world faster than the wrong type of influence. And for Brandy, young, newly famous, and carrying the pressure of being America's sweetheart, the danger wasn't romance. It was older men trying to act like mentors while blurring boundaries they never should have crossed. To keep this safe and respectful, the truth gets retold like this. Between the late 90s and early 2000s, the industry watched quietly as grown men used their positions to gain access to Brandy, not for intimacy, but for emotional control disguised as guidance. These men weren't partners. They were adults who should have protected her career, not complicated it. Her first concerning connection began after the Never Say Never listening event in October 1997 when she met DJ Ronnie Vega, a 32-year-old club veteran known for getting too close to young artists professionally. Witnesses said Brandy sat beside him while he talked to her like a mentor, but his tone carried a vibe that felt wrong to people watching. By March 1998, his burgundy Lexus was often seen near Record One Studios, raising eyebrows. Producers half-joked that he acted like he was her manager, but nobody found it funny. In April 1999, another older producer booked Brandy a private writing session in North Hollywood from 7 to 10 p.m. No music got recorded. Instead, he dimmed the lights, ordered food, and talked to her for hours about emotional access, holding her hands like she needed him more than her own experience. By the time Double Platinum filmed in 1999, Brandy confided in Whitney between takes, saying, "I don't want boys my age. They don't make me feel safe." Whitney didn't scold her. She understood that young stars sometimes look for stability in the wrong places when adults fail to protect them. Brandy didn't fall for many men. She got pulled toward men who used age and influence in ways they shouldn't have. Men who shaped her direction before she had the chance to fully shape her own path. And that made her chapter one of the quietest yet most concerning on Whitney's hidden list. 9. Faith Evans, The Secret Flights to Atlanta. What if the biggest love twist in Faith Evans' life had nothing to do with Biggie or Tupac? What if the real shocker was a man the public never knew she'd fly across the country to see? That's the rumor that rattled the halls of Bad Boy Records in the late 90s. Engineers, managers, and backup singers whispered that Faith would vanish between sessions like she had another life waiting in another city. Between 1998 and 1999, insiders noticed a pattern. Faith kept booking last-minute flights to Atlanta, each under a different alias. Marie Fisher, Tanya Ellison, G. Wallace, and every trip lasted just one night. The reason for Faith's late-night Atlanta trips, according to the folks who caught glimpses of things they were never meant to see, was a producer known in underground circles simply as Major King. He wasn't famous, wasn't signed, and didn't have a single chart number to his name. But he carried a sound Faith couldn't resist, a vibe with silk-wrapped charm and street-grown confidence. On September 12, 1998, staff at the Renaissance Atlanta Midtown remembered Faith walking in at 10:14 p.m., baseball cap pulled low like she didn't want even the carpet to recognize her. At 10:27, Major King strolled through the lobby with a slow stride like he had nowhere in the world to be. Cameras caught them entering the elevator separately, but stepping out together on the 14th floor moments later. By sunrise, Faith was already back on a plane to Newark, moving like nothing happened, no shake in her voice, not a single sign on her face. But secrets don't stay secret forever. An assistant engineer at Bad Boy, the type people forget is even in the room, later told Kelly Price that Faith recorded a private demo in early 1999 that echoed a man whispering, "You don't belong to them tonight." That detail left Kelly stunned. Kelly later relayed the story to Whitney during a VH1 Divas rehearsal, and Whitney listened in silence. Because this wasn't a rumor. It was a pattern forming right in front of insiders' eyes. Flight logs showed Faith flew to Atlanta 6 times between February and November 1999, always alone, always quietly, never staying more than 24 hours. And every time she walked back into the studio, she carried the same glow, the same smudged makeup, the same soft shake in her fingers like she had just locked away a secret too precious or too dangerous to let go. Faith wasn't dealing with many men at all. She was caught up with one man too often, too far away, and too wrapped in a life she kept split between 2 cities. And Whitney understood instantly. The real scandal wasn't what Faith did. It was how perfectly she disguised it. 10. Keyshia Cole, The Broken Men and the Nights That Followed. Some women fall for charm. Keyshia Cole fell for hurt. The kind of hurt that walks around wearing sneakers, fresh tattoos, and emotional storms that pull people into the dark. If Faith hid her love across states, Keyshia hid hers behind men carrying histories heavier than her own. Between 2004 and 2009, insiders whispered that she kept choosing men who were battling old records, old wounds, or both. These were men who had been locked up, men whose tattoos mapped out every chapter of their pain, men who needed saving and knew she was the type to try. One of the early whispers came in July 2005, while Keyshia was filming her BET series The Way It Is. Crew members kept noticing a tall man covered in ink waiting outside her Oakland house every night in a silver Dodge Charger. His name was Darius D. Locke Freeman, and he had been released from San Quentin just 10 months before on a burglary plea, a past that followed him everywhere he went. On July 22nd, a camera operator swore he saw Keyshia sneaking D-Locke into the back entrance of her house around 1:30 a.m., even as producers urged her to stay out of sight with him. Their relationship lasted 3 wild months full of good intentions and heavy arguments. Then came Trevor Miles, a former security guard who carried his own storms. During the Let It Go tour in September 2007, hotel staff in Charlotte remembered yelling from Keyshia's suite at 3:18 a.m., followed by Trevor storming out shirtless with blood on his knuckles. Insiders claimed a lamp was broken in a fight sparked by jealousy, and Keyshia begged security not to file a report. Even after their arguments cooled down, Trevor kept popping up, backstage, in parking lots, at rehearsals, like he refused to let the chapter end. The most tangled situation surfaced in 2010 when she started seeing Anthony Reed, a divorced father who was charming, unemployed, and emotionally on edge. A stylist who worked with both Whitney and Keyshia told Whitney at a 2010 BET event, "Keyshia loves project men. If he's broken, she'll try to fix him." It wasn't judgment, it was worry. Keyshia didn't deal with many men. She kept trying to rescue the ones who didn't know how to love her back. And every time one drifted away, it carved a new room inside her loneliness. A room Whitney recognized without needing a single explanation. 11. Ashanti. The dancers, the dressing rooms, the summer of 2003. Every R&B diva has a pattern. Ashanti's was easy to spot. She fell for men whose bodies could make the crowd scream before she even grabbed a mic. Where Mary's men carried danger and Toni's carried degrees, Ashanti's carried rhythm. These were dancers who circled her night after night during the Murder Inkage run, sweat glistening, muscles moving like drums under stage light. The summer of 2003 became legend among crew members. It started in June during the Rock the Mic tour, when Ashanti slipped into a rehearsal room at Madison Square Garden with Troy Batiste, a dancer known for his unreal abs and a grin that could melt composure off anyone. The rehearsal ended at 9 p.m. Troy didn't walk out until 11:47 p.m. A janitor later admitted he heard laughter, then silence, then a clothing rack crashing over. But Troy wasn't the only one. In July 2003, when the tour hit Miami, Ashanti grew close with Lamar J., a Jamaican dancer known for high-flying moves and an even louder reputation. At American Airlines Arena, a stagehand claimed he saw Ashanti pull Lamar into her dressing room during a break, and they walked out half an hour later, Ashanti glowing and Lamar adjusting his belt like he had sprinted up a mountain. The third name was Vince McCall, the one Whitney heard about the most. At the 2003 BET Awards after-party, Vince was spotted walking behind Ashanti into a restricted hallway where he placed his hands on her waist while she whispered something into his ear. A bet, producer later said, Ashanti likes men who move, men who sweat, men who follow her rhythm. Whitney learned these stories from a choreographer who worked both her tours and Ashanti's. He said, half laughing and half impressed, "That girl never touches a man who isn't in sync. If he can't move with her on stage, he won't move with her off it." 12. Kelly Rowland, the International Lovers. If Ashanti's lovers danced around her, Kelly Rowland's traveled across the map. She wasn't drawn to street men or industry types. She went for foreign lovers, men with accents that turned her whole world sideways. Between 2001 and 2004, Destiny's Child toured globally, and Kelly quietly built a reputation for leaving each continent with one more lover than she arrived with. The first whisper dropped in February 2001 in Milan during the Survivor promo tour. Kelly met Riccardo Marino, an Italian entrepreneur, at a fashion after-party thrown by Dolce & Gabbana. Witnesses said he kissed her hand within minutes of meeting her. Within 2 hours, Kelly left through a side exit. Riccardo followed. Hotel staff said he didn't check out until 11 a.m. the next day. 3 months later in Berlin, she was seen dining with Jonas Klein, a German model with razor-sharp features. A paparazzo caught Kelly entering the Ritz-Carlton at 12:03 a.m. Jonas entered 44 seconds later using a staff elevator. Then came Brazil, the chapter everyone whispered about the loudest. In October 2003, during a Rio tour stop, Kelly reportedly fell into a whirlwind with Marco Valente, a semi-pro footballer with sun-kissed shoulders and a smile that stuck to her like fragrance. On October 18th, after a night party in Copacabana, witnesses saw Kelly and Marco sprinting into the ocean fully dressed, laughing like they were in a private movie scene. They stayed out there nearly 20 minutes before returning to shore. Whitney heard about Kelly's pattern from a European stylist who toured with Destiny's Child and with Whitney's dancers. He said, "Kelly doesn't pick men. She picks countries. Each one gives her a different version of herself." Kelly didn't sleep with random men. She connected with men who represented the world she never had as a kid. Each lover wasn't a trophy. He was a postcard. 13. Fantasia, the married men of the Carolinas. Fantasia Barrino's chapter wasn't about dancers, foreign lovers, or dangerous street energy. Her pattern was married men from her own community in the Carolinas. Between 2006 and 2009, Fantasia kept getting pulled toward men who already had wives, kids, and full lives that didn't match hers. The first whisper hit Charlotte in August 2006 when Fantasia started spending nights with David Hartman, a married youth pastor living 2 blocks from her aunt. Neighbors said they saw Fantasia's Cadillac parked outside his home past midnight. On August 29th, a woman walking her dog claimed she saw Fantasia step out wearing a hoodie and sunglasses at 2 in the morning, trying to blend into the quiet street. Then, in March 2008, she got close to Shane Calloway, a married HVAC technician from Colombia. They met after one of her shows when Shane repaired a backstage AC unit. A lighting tech said Fantasia invited him to her Greensboro home on March 17th, and Shane didn't leave until sunrise. But the situation that rocked her world, and Whitney's, was Antoine Cook, the married cell phone salesman whose affair with Fantasia exploded publicly in 2009. Court filings later revealed that Antoine's wife had come across hotel receipts dated August 16th from the Ritz-Carlton in Charlotte, records showing a room booked under the name T. Jackson, where Fantasia and Antoine allegedly spent the night. The fallout nearly consumed Fantasia. By late 2010, the pressure and scrutiny pushed her to an emotional breaking point. Whitney heard about every piece of it, through church circles, promoters, even a North Carolina pastor who pleaded with her to reach out before things spiraled further. She recognized the ache too well, loving men who could not or would not love you fully in return. 14. Beyonce, the boys erased before fame. Beyoncé's story doesn't open on a global stage. It begins in Houston, long before Destiny's Child, long before MTV, before her image was buffed to a shine. Many assume she never had a messy or complicated past, but insiders whispered that whatever existed was swept clean before she became Beyoncé. Between 1996 and 1998, while still a rising teen talent, she was said to have quietly dated boys from Houston's dance and music scene, relationships that vanished from public memory as her star ascended. The first name murmured was Laren Simmons, a dancer from the Hip Hop Dance Academy. One classmate later claimed that on April 11, 1996, after rehearsal, Beyoncé shared a secret kiss behind the studio, something she believed was unseen. Months later, in early 1997, she was linked to a local rapper known as Lil Dre, whose mixtapes floated around the Cullen Boulevard circuit. They were reportedly spotted holding hands at a late-night Whataburger. Matthew Knowles shut it down swiftly, but the relationship insiders insisted was the real one involved a basketball player named Marcus Hill from Yates High School. Beyoncé was seen with him a handful of times between April and July 1998, including an encounter outside a Blockbuster just before midnight. A friend later claimed the two sat in his back seat for over an hour, assuming anonymity in the dark. Whitney heard these stories through Texas producers during Beyoncé's early showcases. Her team cleaned up everything, they told her. Anyone she knew before the spotlight? Gone. 15. Aaliyah, the men behind the camera. Aaliyah's chapter weighed the heaviest on Whitney, not because it was reckless, but because it was quiet, too quiet. The men in her orbit weren't musicians or industry superstars. They were the ones behind the lenses, cables, and call sheets. While filming Romeo Must Die and Queen of the Damned between 1999 and 2001, Aaliyah was said to have grown close to several crew members, older, more experienced men who were charmed by her warmth and youth. The first was a stunt coordinator from Romeo Must Die. Crew members claimed she spent nearly 2 hours in his trailer one October afternoon, emerging with tousled hair and a shy smile. Next came a lighting technician rumored to have shared a low-key flirtation with her on set. One wardrobe worker insisted she once slipped him her number. During Queen of the Damned, whispers intensified. A second unit director, never publicly named, was rumored to have spent a night with her in a Melbourne hotel after a wrap party in June 2001. A hotel staffer allegedly saw her leaving early the next morning, still in her party clothes. The last was said to be a dancer from the Try Again video, Chris Daly, whose chemistry with her was obvious to nearly everyone except the public. She didn't go for stars, one dancer told Whitney. She gravitated toward the men who made her feel normal. In the end, Whitney Houston never repeated these stories to shame anyone. She understood them. These 15 women weren't wild or irresponsible. They were human. Women navigating an industry that demanded flawlessness, yet offered loneliness, temptation, and shadows no spotlight could clear. Whitney carried their truths because she lived the same storms, felt the same hunger, knew the same kind of men, the ones who could elevate you one night and unravel you the next. Now it's your turn. Which story struck you the most? Whose chapter should we dig into next? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more hidden files, more untold threads, more stories the industry tried to bury, subscribe and turn on notifications. There are countless stories still waiting in the dark.